Hi guys! They say crime doesn't pay, but it certainly makes for a hell of a conversation. I'm Dilyana.
And I'm Marta. We believe that because story is pitch black doesn't mean our outfits has to be.
Welcome to Velvet Violence, the podcast where we wrap the world's darkest crimes in a layer of crushed velvet and just a touch of sass.
We are diving deep into the shadows to find the cases that haunt your sleep, served with a side of wit and zero apologies. Because let's be honest, some cases are too scandalous to stay buried.
So pour yourself a drink, lock your doors, seriously, lock them, and settle in.
It's time to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. This is Velvet Violence.
Let's make one thing clear before we step into the darkness. We're not detectives or lawyers. We don't solve crimes. We just emotionally process them with a microphone. This podcast is a retelling of real events using publicly available sources and wrapping them in our own narrative style. It's a commentary, not a courtroom, so please don't come after us. We've seen enough true crime to know that never ends well. In March of 1981, the District Court of Lübeck, West Germany, wasn't expecting a spectacle. It was day 3 of the trial of a man accused of a crime so heinous, the air in the room felt heavy with it. The defendant just sat there, composed, protected by the slow-moving gears of the German legal system. But in the gallery, a mother named Marianne was done waiting for justice she didn't believe was coming. She didn't shout, she didn't cause a scene. She simply reached into her trench coat, pulled out a Beretta 70 and fired 7 shots. 6 of them found their mark. It was a moment that blurred the line between a grieving mother and a cold-blooded executioner. Was it a desperate act of love? Or a calculated strike of vengeance? Today, we peel back the layers of a case that forced an entire nation to ask, when the law fails to protect the innocent, is blood the only currency left? Alright. So, Marianne Bachmeier was born on June 3rd in 1950 in a small town called Sarstedt in West Germany. Marianne was raised in a conservative home by her devoutly religious parents. So it was said her father was previous member of the Waffen-SS, which was the Nazis. And he was the typical authorization figure. He was very heavy drinker and he used to spend majority of his time in the pub near the family house. As you can imagine, he was a very strict person, but the alcohol made him aggressive. It wasn't said that he was abusive in any way, but pretty much he wanted everything to be perfect and the way he wanted it. It was said about him that he wouldn't even let the grass in their garden to grow over a certain level.
Okay.
It has to be perfect, to that point that Marianne, his daughter, wasn't even allowed to play in that garden, just so it can stay perfect.
Yeah.
Obviously not a great household. So Marianne's parents, they divorced at some point and her mother remarried for another man. Her stepdad wasn't a better father though. He didn't like Marianne's free spirit. So Marianne, she was very opinionated. She liked to have her say, even though she was like a teenager, but she still wanted to say what she thinks. It doesn't matter if she was right or not. But she wasn't the kind of kid that you tell her something and she's not gonna get back to you.
Yeah.
So her stepdad soon after started being physically abusive towards Marianne because he really didn't like that she was talking back. Obviously, she didn't meet his expectations as a kid, a stepkid. And Marianne had a boyfriend at some point. And you know how it is. She was 16 years old at this point and she was in love, I guess.
Yeah.
So she used to sneak out of the house to meet that boy, and soon after she fell pregnant. So obviously that didn't sit well with her stepdad and her mom. So that boy name was Herman, I missed to say that. Marianne was described as a troubled adolescent, and because of all that, she was kicked out of that house. So her mom and her stepdad kicked her out while she was pregnant, vulnerable. I can't believe it, but that case is from the 80s, so you can imagine the misogyny at those times, and I guess it was quite normal if someone doesn't follow the rules.
I was going to say that back in the day then, especially when she's not married, I guess, and then falling pregnant that early in life, that would be a good reason to kick her out, which is very sad, unfortunately, but it was a different mindset, I guess.
And I guess her mom pretty much was taking her partner's side instead of her child's side, but obviously that's only speculation. But yeah, Marianne was homeless. She and Herman, they didn't have any place to stay, and I guess there was some kind of shelters for pregnant women, not married women, and I'm not sure how those were called, but it was pretty much basic conditions, like they were providing bed and that's it. And I guess that's where Marianne stayed, and her boyfriend, obviously he stayed in his house, but he was with her through her pregnancy. But once she gave birth, she obviously knew she couldn't take care of that child, so she decided to give it for adoption as an infant, and I guess Herman just left her. So yes, Marianne was all alone. She gave her baby up, and I'm not saying she wanted to, but she knew that she couldn't give it a good life, so I guess that was the better option for the baby, because I don't think Marianne did that out of selfishness.
No.
Yeah, I think she did it for her child.
Oh, definitely. Well, especially when she's homeless and there is no support and from family and from Herman. That's the most reasonable thing to do, I guess, is just give that poor baby a better life, because she knew she wouldn't be able to afford that.
Yes, I definitely don't blame Herman either. They were both 16, so it's quite hard to even imagine having a child at this age. Marianne, later on, she was now 18 years old, so she's given birth, she gave the child for adoption, and not even a year later, she started dating another boy. He was a very sweet boy from her school. He was 18 also, same age as her. And not long after, she fell pregnant again. And obviously, guys, people will start judging and stuff, but you need to realize at this time there wasn't the same protection that there is these days, and it was completely different. And I guess, I don't know, it wasn't unusual for women to get pregnant very young.
Yeah, no, of course, they were getting married by age 18. You know.
She fell pregnant, but again, she's still homeless, living in the shelter. It was said about that boy, he was homeless as well. He didn't have place to stay. Marianne, she was very heavily pregnant at this point. And she found out that her parents, her mom and her stepdad, were going on vacation or somewhere away from the house. So they decided to crash in the house. So they broke in and they kind of decided to stay there. And that was the time when some guy noticed Marianne. It was a neighbor, but he didn't just notice her in a good way, that's a pregnant woman. It was much creepier, sinister way. One time when Marianne was alone in the house, that guy broke in, and on a gunpoint he told her to take her clothes off, and he sexually assaulted her. And bear in mind, Marianne is heavily pregnant, so he's pointing a gun at her and he's literally like assaulting her.
That's awful.
He did tell her that if she called the police, he's gonna kill her. But as I said, Marianne was very free-spirited. She always had her say, so she went against that and she did call the police.
Good.
And that guy was arrested. Unfortunately, back in the day, the sentences for rape, it was not long time, so it was around 2 years. But he did get sentenced, even though his excuse was like, well, Marianne was a whore, so she was looking for it. But the circumstances, on a gunpoint, you're being assaulted and you're also a pregnant woman, so he did go to prison for that. Marianne gave birth to her second child, and that child was also given for adoption as a baby because she was still in the same situation. In her mind, she always wanted to be a mother, but she just didn't see how this is gonna be a good life for this child. So she did the same. She gave it for adoption, and I guess they split up with that boy as well. So we're coming to that time that Marianne graduated school. Once she did that, she found a job in a pub as a bartender or waitress. I'm not quite sure, but it was a pub job. Marianne was a very beautiful woman, so she used to turn the heads like everywhere she went, and obviously people in that place, they loved her. She had loads of friends. She was staying late after her shift to drink with the clients, and she finally had a stability. She had a job, didn't pay much, but she managed to find a flat for herself to get out of the situation she used to be in, obviously homeless at such a young age. And yeah, she started dating the guy, the manager of the pub. So his name was Christian, and they had an on and off relationship. But you probably know what I'm gonna say, but shortly after, at the age of 22, Marianne fell pregnant again. This time it was different though. She had a place to live, she had a job, she had a boyfriend. So she did decide she's gonna keep this child because that's what she wanted from the start. Obviously her situation is different now, so she decided she's gonna raise this child. From what I've read, again, just speculation, Christian was as well committed to stay with Marianne and to have that child. But after the birth of the child, I guess, is where he changed his mind, so he didn't want any part in it anymore. Marianne decided she's gonna raise the kid alone. Anna, Marianne's daughter, was born on November 14th of 1972. Marianne was very happy to be a mom, but as I said, her pub job didn't pay a lot. It just paid enough so she can cover her bills of the flat and food and the simple thing. But she didn't have enough to pay for childcare, let's say. So what she did is she was taking Anna with her to work. The pub today, it's probably not a place you would see a lot of babies. But back in the day, I guess it was normal. A lot of children were raised in the pubs pretty much with their parents. And yeah, Marianne was bringing Anna with her. She was just leaving her somewhere to roam around or stuff. When she was baby, obviously she was just like there sleeping or whatever. But when she became a toddler, and then like from 4, 5, 6, she was just left there to do her own shit. So she was exactly like Marianne. She was a free spirit. She used to run around. Obviously, when she was a toddler, she started talking to people, and she was just in between the tables behind the bar and talking to adults, you know, people who used to drink there, and like cigarette smoking, because you could smoke inside at that time. And like she was just there running around and making friends, I guess. And it was said that because of this, they were like best friends. They had a relationship as your mom would have with you when you were a teenager. That's how Marianne looked at Anna, even though she was just 6, 7 years old at this stage. Marianne looked at Anna like she was a teenager, and she expected her to kind of take care of herself. Anna used to pretty much sleep at the pub as well when she got tired until her mom finishes her shift. But sometimes it was said that Marianne used to stay after her shift and have a drink, and then they would go home in the late night or like in the early morning even. And then Anna was expected to sleep and then wake up, get herself ready, prep herself food and go to school. Yeah, it was pretty much like, I cannot explain it in a better way, but Anna was like a little adult. And that's how she was taught, I guess. Later on, according to Marianne's friends, it was said that Anna was a vibrant youngster who unfortunately didn't have a pretty good family life. So in the early morning of May 5th in 1980, Anna and her mother came back from work, from Marianne's shift. So they had an argument, and Marianne obviously went to bed, and Anna was expected to go to bed as well, and in the morning to wake up, prep herself food and go to school. Unfortunately, because of that argument, Anna decided to skip school on May 5th. So she did not go to school. She decided to go to her friend's house, but by the time she got there, that friend was already
In school.
Yeah. I guess she left for school or she was already at school, but she wasn't there. So Anna decided just to wander around, and I guess she just was talking to people, finding new friends. And then unfortunately, she met a neighbor. His name was Klaus Grabowski. That neighbor she seen before because she knew he had cats. I'm not sure she used to play with his cats at some point or whatever, but she knew his face. And she was lured in to his house for that reason, I think. He told her that, oh, you can come to play with my cats.
That's how I would get kidnapped.
That's, how we would get kidnapped as well.
Show me the kitty cats, no problem.
Obviously, Anna is a child, and she doesn't have that sense of what's dangerous, what's not. She just seen people in that pub, which are always like had drink, friendly, laughing.
Kind to her.
Yeah, and everybody loved her. Everybody in that pub, and she expects that, I guess, all people are like this. Yeah. And she could start conversation with anybody. She has no clue that there is predators out there. So this guy, Klaus, he was previously convicted for child abuse. Not long before he lured Anna into his house, I think 4 years before that, he was convicted for sexually assaulting 2 young children, again girls, and apparently he didn't want to spend any time in prison, so he had the option, which don't even get me started. So to avoid prison time, he had agreed to have it's not a surgical castration, but it's a castration in a way you take hormones and they basically get rid of your sex drive. So it's some kind of medical castration, but it's not surgical.
Right.
Yeah. He had agreed to do that to avoid prison. To me, that was mind-blowing because
fucked up, man.
You kind of like trusting that guy who already had sexual assaulted kids, that he's gonna be taking that medication in his own will, and you're gonna trust him that he's gonna be responsible now.
Even though they wouldn't be able to check, I guess, unless they would come over and feed them those drugs. Do you know what I mean? Because like, how you can trust a convict who's especially a child abuser?
I don't know.
This is ridiculous.
It just blew my mind. But as I said, that's back in the day. That other guy was convicted just for 2 years for assaulting a pregnant woman, so I guess that was normal. But however, guys, that was who Klaus was previously, but unfortunately at this day, May 5th in the morning, Anna found him, or he found Anna, I don't know, but she went into his house. Unfortunately, what I'm gonna say next, it's not nice at all, but he sexually assaulted her, and after that he strangled her with her own panties. Obviously those hormones didn't help. But from what I've read, I think he stopped using them and he was using other hormones because he wanted to feel like a man again. But for one reason or another, that treatment obviously didn't work. So now he's not only sexually assaulted a child, but he also murdered someone. And that poor kid, as I said, she had no idea what danger she was in when she went into his house. What he did after, he put her in a cardboard box, took her down to the canal where he left her like she was nothing. And it just blows my mind. I'm like, what the fuck? How can you do this shit? And like, it's a 7-year-old child. He went home that day. What I missed to tell you, he had a fiance. From what I've read, actually, she was the one that turned him in, because apparently when she came back from work or wherever, they saw each other, they had a talk, everything seemed normal, but apparently he started like behaving weirdly. He seemed very nervous and stuff like that, and I think at some point he just confessed to the whole thing. He told her what he's done, and I'm so thankful that his fiancée, she decided to do the right thing, so she went to the police straight away. Back in Marianne's house, she woke up, Anna wasn't there. That wasn't unusual because Anna was supposed to be at school and then come home.
Yeah.
So Marianne went out, she did whatever she needed to do, I guess grocery shopping or whatever. She came back home after, but Anna was still gone. So she started worrying slowly. Then she just went out on the street to look for her. No one could tell her anything. She called everyone she knew, but Anna was nowhere to be found. Unfortunately, once she reported her to the police started looking. They did look that whole day, but the next morning is when Klaus' fiance already told them what she knew. So Marianne, through that whole day, she had no idea. She was getting annoyed with Anna because she thought they had an argument. So now she's being rebellious and she doesn't want to come home. So she's getting annoyed with her. She still reported her to the police and everything. She's worried, but she feels like she's gonna be back.
Yeah.
The next day, what she found out from the police is that her daughter is dead. They're telling her all that information about Klaus. He's already been arrested. So they give that information to Marianne. And as you can imagine, the guilt and everything just hits you like you've been annoyed with your kids. You think she's missing.
Yeah.
And she's just run away because you had an argument. But for you to find out that she was actually needing your help, and like it's horrible just to imagine. But Marianne she was heartbroken. She didn't know if that was true. She didn't believe it at first. She went through all those emotions. It did hit her in the end that it was true. So she was so devastated. Obviously, you need to prepare funerals now and all that, because once Klaus was arrested, he did tell the police where he left the body, and they found her. The funeral of Anna, for 7-year-old girl to have so many people to come pay their respects, I'm getting upset. To me, it's just so sad because she was such a vibrant child. So everyone, all the customers from the pub, all the staff, everyone was there. Because the pub was like a kind of hippie pub. It was all free-spirited people, happy people. And her funeral was more like a celebration of her life. So Pink Floyd was blasting. And it was just such a beautiful sent out, I thought.
You like to talk about very bad crimes, and it just makes me very emotional.
I know.
It's sad, obviously, but I wanted to know about the trial of Klaus. He did confess. I guess he was taken straight to the police, right? So what happened? What happened after?
Well, obviously it was clear that he did it, but because of what happened on the trial, he was never sentenced. He literally died an innocent man because he was killed on the 3rd day of the trial. And according to the law back then, a deceased person, he can be accused, but he cannot be sentenced.
Okay.
During the trial, it was thought, because of his confession, he was gonna face life in prison anyway, because back in the day that was the normal sentence for murder that obviously involves sexual assault as well.
Okay. Yes. Well, I'm not being judgmental whatsoever about Marianne. To put myself in her shoes,
I know.
If I would have the guts, I would probably do exactly the same. It's sad that Klaus didn't end up in prison and rot in prison, but he did spend still the 3 days at trial. So what happened there?
Well, that's the thing though, because a lot of people think that what Marianne did is really wrong, I guess, because justice is justice, and if everyone decides to take the justice in their own hands, the world's gonna go to shit, But a lot of people actually supported what she did, and what drove her to do this, it's on the actual trial, when it started, Klaus pretty much was portrayed as a person who was trying to do better. And what he actually said, and what his defense was going for, was that Anna, the 7-year-old girl, she was blackmailing him, and she was actually trying to seduce him.
Oh, God.
And once he refused to do what she wanted him to do, she told him that she's gonna go home and tell her mom, and he says that it wasn't a sexually driven crime. He did it because he was afraid to go back to prison, because she obviously was trying to blackmail.
What the
As you can imagine, you're a mother and you sit in that court and listen to that adult man trying to pin what he did to your 7-year-old daughter who he murdered.
Exactly.
And I was like,
So how the fuck is he trying to do better?
exactly,
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. It's like, even if that was the case, I'm not saying that it was, because it wasn't. So if your solution to not go to prison is to murder a child, that doesn't make it better.
Exactly.
Doesn't make it an excuse.
And anyway, even if he would try to hide it, the truth will eventually come out.
Exactly.
So then he will end up in prison, or obviously he was struggling with whatever he did. He would kill himself, or he will eventually go and say what has happened. So yeah, seeing a person, like you said, who abused and killed your daughter, you know, I understand that she had her head all over the place, and you know, she wanted to do whatever she did. Okay, it's not the right way to do it, but what has happened then?
I think she had enough of listening to him for the 2 days of the trial, because obviously on the 3rd day she did what she did. But I'm not sure, because later on it was said that she planned it all. But I can imagine it wasn't just planned. You can't just decide to murder someone. You obviously will have your doubts.
And especially when you mentioned that she's the hippie person, she's a free spirit.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. You know, she haven't done it with a premeditation, like a proper murderer who plans it.
Well, according to one of her friends, apparently she had practiced in her basement. But even if she did, guys, I don't know. That's only speculations. But in the end of the day, she had enough. And on the 3rd day of the trial, she just walked in with her trench coat. She sneaked in that pistol. Obviously, the checks in the courtrooms back in the day, they weren't as advanced as they are today.
It's like at the airport,
yeah,
the
it's
security
like,
checks.
Yeah, it's so much advanced technology put in place to make sure nothing like that ever happens. But back in the day, there was nothing like that. And obviously, she's the grieving mother. So even if there was security, they didn't check her. She walked into the courtroom. She went quite close to Klaus. He was with his back on her, and she just aimed and she shot him. 6 of those bullets, they, as I said, found their mark, and he died almost immediately. And it was said that Marianne just dropped the gun and she was immediately restrained. There was no resistance. People started running out and stuff because you don't know, but it was obvious that was her only target. And she did what she did. She dropped the gun. She was restrained, and people heard her say, "I did this for you, Anna." And unfortunately, she still killed someone.
Yeah, so what happened? What happened to her after that?
She was arrested. She was taken to jail. Bear in mind, the whole nation was on Marianne's side. A lot of people said they would do exactly what she did in those circumstances, and I can understand that.
Yeah.
To me, it's not the right thing to do, but is it the wrong thing?
Like I said at the beginning, I probably would be the same. You know, it's 7-year-old child, and at the end of the day, this poor kid didn't do anything. And you can see a guy who's sitting there with no remorse blaming your daughter for something that he's done. I'm sorry, but it's just emotions going through your head. I get it, you're supposed to leave it to the court to give him, sentence. But it's hard to answer that question, what would you do? Because you haven't been in that situation.
Exactly, yeah.
So, yeah, I get it in one way, and I get why people supported her, because obviously we are not the only one actually agreeing to that. But on the other hand, it shouldn't happen, only because this fucking dick's supposed to rot in prison, and that's all I'm gonna say.
But the thing is, you don't know if he was gonna rot in prison, because as I said, he was still playing a victim. He was presented that he's trying to do better, and he was turning it around like it was Anna's fault.
Yeah.
Like he was so afraid to go to prison that she forced him to murder her. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, to me, it's like you can only be pushed that much. And I'm not saying that Marianne wouldn't do what she did, but maybe she wouldn't if he didn't go about it this way.
Yeah.
Maybe if she felt that he was gonna face justice, she wouldn't do it, but you don't know that. Did he deserve what he got? Definitely. Did Marianne do something wrong? Definitely. But in the end of the day, it was already done. She didn't have remorse. It was clear. She knew what she was doing and she did it. Her eye didn't blink when she was killing him. She didn't plan to harm anyone else. The whole nation was on her side at this point. But I feel like the justice system in Germany, they couldn't not do anything about it.
No, of course.
Because what message that would send to people, just like take the mother in your own hands, and it's not right, is it? But in the end of the day, she was jailed, she was sentenced later on, so she was convicted for murder and the possession of that firearm, because she claimed that she got that firearm for self-defense after her daughter was murdered, but she obviously used it for something different. Even though she was sentenced for the possession of the firearm, they didn't go with the sentence of murder, they went with manslaughter.
Okay.
6 years she was supposed to spend in prison, but they let her go after 3 years.
Oh, okay.
As I said, her life was never gonna be the same. She was devastated. Even while in prison, people were very worried that she's gonna take her own life. She was in such a bad place. And once she got released from prison, it was even harder because she used to live in Lübeck, so everyone knew her. Every place probably reminded her of her daughter, and it was very hard, so it wasn't nice after prison as well.
Did she get any support though? I know I don't expect the parents or stepdad, so they left her at very young age, but did she ever had any support from all those people she worked with?
Well, yes, her friends, they were always on her side. They always supported her, but I can't say the same about the nation though, because a lot of people turned against her after she was released. She wasn't seen as that hero anymore that did the right thing. And I feel like obviously that was after the war, so once people found more about Marianne, so they found out about her father, that he was a member of the Waffen-SS.
Yeah.
So people wanted to leave the war behind them, I guess. And once they found out more and more about Marianne, about her life, they started seeing her as that maybe it was her fault. Maybe she was the problem. And don't get me wrong, I get that people can change their mind. But you were supporting that woman before, and now you're turning against her just because of her surroundings and her situation that she was in. They obviously found out that she's given previous kids for adoption, and maybe they thought, well, why didn't she do the same with Anna? But no, it's not fair. It's not fair. And in the end of the day, if that was a man, would he be that judge? Or women always need to do better as parents?
Yeah, exactly. I don't get it. We said at the beginning, I don't blame her of what happened, okay? At the end of the day, when you become pregnant, it's not only a woman's fault. It's both of you. So I'm sorry, but why the ex-boyfriends and partners that she had children with, why they didn't get shit? In her head, and I probably would think the same, if I can't afford my baby and I have no money, no support whatsoever, I want to give that poor baby a better life, because I know there will be a life that she will never experience with me, because I'm broke as bitch and I'm young and I'm irresponsible. So I think it was the best decision. Imagine if she would be homeless with kids. But there will be always people that will judge.
As I said, I've never said that Marianne did the right thing, but to me it's like one less pedophile in the world.
You know, we're going back to, 70s, right?
80s, yeah.
80s, exactly. But first of all, people didn't really see that many pedophiles or
They
stuff
didn't know
like
about
that.
them.
They didn't know about them because there was no problem back in the day. Depression wasn't a problem, mental health issues weren't a problem, and this is clearly a mental health issue. So you didn't have any support.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, but this guy would never get help because there was no help there, especially when he was sentenced for the same thing prior, and now he's trying to do better. And again, it was, well, he assaulted 2 kids,
Two
yeah?
girls, yeah.
So it's a 3rd fucking strike.
But that's what I'm saying. Was Marianne gonna get justice for what happened to Anna? The trial is even pointless in this case. Like, I'm sorry, but I know, guys, there is systems put in place, but we're talking about child here.
Yeah.
Surely those people should be sentenced without trial, yeah?
Yeah.
To me, that's how it should be, but obviously I know that's not how it works. It just frustrates me, like my head's gonna explode.
I know, yeah, because that's the problem, because they would either convict him as a murderer and a rapist, or they will just convict him as psychologically insane, and then you will just go to cuckoo house then. You wouldn't
which
go
is
to
not
prison.
even a prison, yeah.
Exactly.
It's like
high life.
Yeah.
Because that's what it would be. You would have your food, you know, you would have your place to stay, etc. So that's the whole reason of a trial, and I know it's very frustrating, but it would be a close case if he wouldn't be a dick.
Yeah, try to pin it on the girl.
Yeah, trying to pin it on
7-year-old girl.
It's ridiculous.
I know. And obviously, like, people afterwards saying that, why Marianne didn't put Anna for adoption also. Well, you need to understand, she never wanted to put her children for adoption. She did it for her children's good. But with Anna, she was in a different position in her life, and she thought she could do better.
Yeah.
Maybe she didn't do better, but sometimes she did think to put her for adoption. But it was already her child. She raised it to this point. They had an unbreakable bond, it was said. I know they were mother and a daughter, but they were kind of like sisters. They were even arguing like sisters.
Yeah.
And I get why she didn't give her for adoption, because she thought, okay, she's in a position that she can do this now. It's like, you can never be perfect.
No.
And that goes for everything.
So they started basically blaming all on Marianne, yeah?
They did start blaming everything on her, and basically, short after her release, Marianne decided to move to Nigeria. She was seeing someone else as well. She went there, she got married to the person she was seeing, but unfortunately, that relationship ended. And then she just moved on her own to Sicily. So once Marianne moved to Sicily, she was actually working there as a carer in a hospice. And I guess it's quite poetic, you know, she took a man's life and she ended up taking care of people in need. Unfortunately, later in her life, she was diagnosed with a pancreatic cancer. Once Marianne found out about her diagnosis, she moved back to Germany because she's always obviously wanted to be buried next to her daughter. When she moved back, she asked some reporter to basically record or capture her final stages of life. She did a lot of interviews. In her interviews, she said she never regretted what she did. She always stood by what she did, and there was no remorse there. And I guess she didn't care if she did the wrong thing or the right thing. She avenged her daughter, and in the end of her life, it was obvious that she didn't have any remorse, but she didn't try to hide it. To me, that's what is so it's so fascinating to me, that people can accuse her or whatever, but she was always honest about it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Marianne passed away on September 17, 1996. She was buried next to her daughter Anna, and it's very unfortunate, you know, Anna lost her life just at 7 years old. And who knows, Marianne lost her life as well quite young. She was only 46 years old. So maybe if Klaus didn't do what he did, they both would still be alive, you know? It's very controversial case, I would say. And guys, I would love to hear your opinions. Marta obviously will share hers here. But I guess they're not much different than mine.
No. Well, like we've been talking, seriously, fair play to her. She stood by her. Clearly, unfortunately, of what happened, her life would never be the same. She tried to start life in Nigeria, in Sicily, right? But I feel like in the back of her head was her life is incomplete.
How can you move on from this? Yeah,
Exactly. You can't move on from this. It's a different story when your child is sick and you know that he's gonna pass away sooner rather than later. But you live with that, you're getting prepared for it. When you lose a child, you lose half of you, and you're never gonna be the same. She lost herself, she didn't care at that point. I wouldn't too, you know. And fair play to her that she stood by it. She did her time. There will be always people who will have opinions of how bad it was, that the justice system's supposed to do whatever they're supposed to do to that Klaus. But she didn't care. I feel like at that point, what happened, she just didn't care what's gonna happen with her. You know, it's sad. You said it's controversial. It is, but I would say what she did, fair enough. You know, she passed away, and we're never gonna hear what's actually going through her head. It's sad, and it's sad that we need to talk about cases that there are men in this world that are abusing children.
At these times, there is even women who abuse children.
Exactly.
Which is even more like, obviously, there is a lot of evil people in this world. You just wouldn't think it would ever happen to you. And I guess, like, back in the day, people would trust more, you know. It was more social life, wasn't it? Like, there was no phones. It was all, like, real connections, real conversations, face to face.
Exactly.
And people were much more trusting, I guess. And I feel like today it's even scarier though, because there's the internet. You don't know who's on the other side of the phone or the computer. The world is going like worse and worse, I feel.
Yeah, definitely.
But in this case specifically, I'm not very torn, because I guess to me that guy got what he deserved.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure which is worse, for him to just die there, being shot, or just to serve time in prison. What I can say is that Marianne maybe didn't want that to be someone else's choice.
Yeah.
She wanted to give him what she thought he deserved. I don't know, guys. Tell us, what do you think? Was Marianne just grieving mother who couldn't find peace and she finally found it when she shot Klaus? Or tell us what do you think in the comments. And please, guys, if you enjoy what you're doing, if you like our episodes, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time, I guess.
Bye.
Bye.